Hey, and welcome to a new week. New week, new me, right? I'm not going to get stressed. I'm not going to be worried. I did, however, just decide that I was burning up and I grabbed a ponytail holder and just threw this back. What is happening to my camera? Okay, I noticed that my camera was wanting to go in and out and in and out instead of just being still in the last video. And so now I keep looking over to the side to see what it's doing. Anyway, if it's doing that, I'm sorry. I have a setting turned off to not autofocus, but it looks like it's trying to do it sometimes anyway. Okay. I have moments where I start freaking out about what we've done and what we've not done and what I've done and what I've not done, but it's too late. It is 4 p.m. on... Oh, does that mean I have to leave? Wait. Okay, I have 5 minutes before I have to leave. Thankfully, my shoes are literally right beside me. I'm dressed and ready to go. I just have to put the dogs in the car and head out. So I'm taking the dogs to the vet. They've got to get a booster shot for the shots that they had to get last time, which weirdly happened when we were going out of town. And so now it's happening again the day before we're going out of town. But the dogs are going with us this time. So I am going to put the dogs in the car, go to town. On my way, I'm going to finish reading A Brief History of Everyone Who Ever Lived. And then I don't know that I'm going to finish it. But if I do, I'll start another book. And then when I come back, I will do an update and tell you what's going on. Actually, when I come back, I have to go to dinner with somebody new that just moved up here to Minot. And so we want to go to dinner with them and be like, hey, do you have any questions? I know it's cold, although they came from Alaska, so they already know cold. So I think that's all. We're just saying hi, welcome to Minot, and we're going to do dinner with them after I get back with the dogs. And clearly I cannot have my hair looking like this when I go to the vet or dinner. So I've got to do something about my hair. So I'm going to go. I thought I had time to kick this off. And I guess all I have time to do is say hi, and I will be back later. See, I thought it was going to be new week, new me. Might be same me. Okay, so I finished A Brief History of Everyone Who Ever Lived by Adam Rutherford. It was good. It was a nice look at genetics and DNA, and there were some interesting things in there that I did not know. A whole discussion about sickle cells and what they evolved for, why they're present, and what they were intended for, and then what kind of happened. And all of it just happened on its own, like because our bodies were like, hey, we can't fight off this malaria. And our bodies were like, oh, well, if we shape our cells in a certain way, it fights off malaria. And then the rest of our body was like, okay, but then we have to fight those cells that are now shaped weirdly. So just the whole thing about all of it was so interesting. I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. I love that it's called A Brief History of Everyone Who Ever Lived. But also some of the stuff just like completely blew my mind as far as like DNA goes and tracing ancestors and the fact that our ancestors have to like overlap over each other. So everybody in the world has to be connected through certain genealogical combinations, or there's not any way, because if you just do the math from like the number of people we have right now and double it for their parents and then double that for their grandparents and then double that number of people going back, even 100 years, that number of people has never existed on the planet. So there's no way that it is physically possible. Anyway, it's just, it was really cool. And a great way for me to just do a little bit of nerding out and reading nonfiction. So all of that to say, my shadow cabin TBR has kind of imploded. I am taking this off as well, and this is what we have right now. Now, I am about to read a book. I'm going to remove this as well. Let me just take everything off that I have not read, because some of my people are only tracking things as they read them, and then they're adding them to the list. So I think I might do that. I'm going to take all these little check marks off so we can see what has been read, which is everything on this page. And now I'm going to read a book called Southern Seducer. I had to go look it up. So it is supposed to be a really funny romance. And one of my other groups recommended it because we need to read funny books, so like comedies and stuff. And so they recommended that I read that. And so I added it to my list. And then it was on sale on Chirp. So I bought it. So now I'm going to go get it and start reading that one next. I am also packing because my trip is happening in the morning. So today is June 12th. It is 8 o'clock at night, and I will probably not check in with you until the end of this video, which is June 18th, when I arrive back home after my trip. So I will make sure I take some pictures or do something that I can show you of the trip, and then I'll catch back up with you on the other side with everything I've read and give you all the information then. I'm sorry, it's the first time I've spoken today. I'm so happy to be home. I'm so happy to be back. I've got to do something because my visit time was great, but it was so short that I felt really rushed most of the visit, and there was not a lot of like, let's rest and actually get to spend time with my family members. So Django's here. So I'm here to talk about what happened this week. I sat down last night and I wrote out every book that I have read in the month of June. So there they are. There are 23 of them at the moment. I am on my 24th book right now, and yes, it is June the 19th. So this video will be going up later today in the midst of all the things that I have to do. Number one, I don't have to work at the library today. I do have an appointment in town, which I know this is the same for some of you. When you say in town or when you go to an appointment, you have to drive to get to the appointment. And that's what I have to do. I have to drive. It's just 30 minutes, but still, I have to drive 30 minutes there and 30 minutes back. And then my appointment is for 1 hour. So it's 2 hours of my day that is taken up with this, which is fine. It's actually an intake appointment for counseling. So I want to talk about preemptive counseling. Okay. So our youngest child is about to be a senior in high school. So we have 1 year left before he graduates. He is not necessarily immediately moving out, but he is the last one that will be left here. My other child is about to be moving out, and so we're going to just be 3 of us. And then very soon, there's just going to be the 2 of us. So my husband and I were at date night, and we were chatting, and somehow we just brought up, like, what if we went and talked to a counselor about what to do when we have an empty nest? Like making sure that our communication lines are open and that everything is, I don't know, just as good as it can be when it's only the 2 of us. And so a long time ago, I called a counselor in town and I was like, hey, we want to do a preemptive empty nest marriage discussions. Like, is that a thing we can do? And she said, sure. So, I mean, I guess they'll take our money for doing whatever, right? So, I have the intake appointment today where I get to go in and be super awkward by saying, there's not a problem. We're just trying to make sure there's not a problem in the future. I don't know. I don't even know what that's going to look like. But anyway, I'm going to talk to her today. I have that appointment. And the rest of the day is focusing on getting all the little bitty video details done that need to be handled for all the videos. I also got in the mail this new planning pad. It is from my friend Lakin. You can't really see it very well for some reason. Well, because it's white. That's why there's a glare. But anyway, it just has from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. on here. And then on this side. And then on this side, it just has some lines for like different to-do lists if you want to do it. However you want to label them. All I did yesterday was kind of go through. What I think I might do is I might start putting work, like just block off a chunk that says work, and then over here to the side write down what I actually want to get done at work. I don't know how I'm going to end up using it, but I really like the idea of having this. And every day I just fill out my thing, because on the days that I work, like tomorrow I'm at the library from 10 to 2, so I can mark that big chunk of time off that I'm not going to be at my house and just work around it that way. Anyway, that's what I'm hoping to do right there. Now let's talk about the books. When I left here, I told you that someone had recommended Southern Seducer, like a series about a group of siblings. At the same time, somebody else had suggested a book called Flawless by Elsie Silver as another romance series that would fit in for Wonderthon, because it's all romance, but also they're just really good books, they said. So what I did was I decided, okay, I'm going to read all the Southern books. So there are 5 of them. And I started with Southern Seducer. When we left here on Thursday morning, I started reading Southern Seducer. So these are all written by Jessica Peterson, and y'all, they're all Southern. So then we have Seducer, Hotshot, Sinner, Playboy, and Bombshell. That whole series I read in the 2 days going to Arkansas. So Thursday and Friday, I read all 5 of those books. They were so good. Also, I was driving for 24 hours, and that's literally all I did was listen to those books. The kids, once we got there, were like, we didn't even listen to music this time. I was like, no. I was on a mission, number 1, because I wanted to get those books done. And number 2, the books were really good. So I'm actually making an entire video later this afternoon about those books and what I thought about them and how wonderfully done I thought the characters were and the books were. And if you can handle even a little bit of spice, some of them have a little bit more spice, but if you can handle that, these romances and these characters were fantastic. Like, I don't even know. Anyway, the Beauregard siblings, that's who they are. They have a mountain resort in North Carolina. I think that's right. North Carolina. And they have all retired. There are 4 boys and 1 girl. All 4 boys were football players. So I'm going to go into more depth in this, because I love football. Like, I love watching it. I love the rules for it. I used to play Madden all the time on my Xbox. Like, I like football. So we're going to talk about the football aspects. We're going to talk about a couple of things that were wrong. A couple of inconsistencies that I noticed because I read this series back to back, and she certainly didn't write it back to back. So anyway, I would like to point out a couple of inconsistencies. That video is going to be coming later though. Anyway, then at midnight on the 15th of June, the Wonderthon officially started. And I then picked up Flawless by Elsie Silver, because I had already written out on this notebook. Y'all just don't even know the number of notebook things I have in front of me right now. On this notebook, I had written out all the first things that I wanted to read and what I was going to count them for. So I'm not going into detail on that, because this video is coming out today. And not that I think other people from other teams are going to be like watching my videos, but somebody might see it and be like, oh, well, Amanda on Team Milan said this. So I'm not going to talk about the strategy, but I am going to say that I read Flawless, Heartless, Powerless, Reckless, and Hopeless while I was at home over the weekend and on Monday of my trip back. So Monday the 17th is when I finished Hopeless. That was the 5th book. So I read that whole series, which is about a sibling group that has 4 boys and 1 girl, and they're in North Carolina. I'm pretty sure. They're not in North Carolina, I don't think. They're more cowboy ranchers than owning a resort. So that one is less sports, more ranching. But I'm also going to do a video about those 5 books. So if you're not interested in romance, I'm really sorry. I don't normally just focus on one genre or the other, but because I need to focus on romance for Milan, I have been doing nothing but romance. So after I finished Hopeless, I was like, okay, strategizing with my team about where I needed to be reading and what I needed to be doing. So then I read The Deal by L. Kennedy, because I needed a book that ended in a certain page number, and that book had it. So I literally was driving down the road and I passed my phone with my Goodreads on it back to the kids in the back seat. And I was like, somebody find me a romance novel over 300 pages long that ends in this number of pages. And 2 of them worked on it. And then they sent me and said, what about Elle Kennedy? And I was like, I love her. So after one of my children tried to make me read Nicholas Sparks, I was like, no, thank you. I'm not doing that. So I read The Deal. It's one of the off-campus books, which I've already read a lot of her books about Brighton. I forgot the name of the school that she's made. Anyway, in Boston, they usually focus around the hockey team that lives there. So these are called off-campus, and although they were still on campus, I don't understand. Well, I don't understand why it was called that. But anyway, it was just a romance between a tutoring music major girl and the jock who convinces her to tutor him so that he doesn't lose his spot as captain of the hockey team. And they're both juniors in college. So that was cute. If you like Elle Kennedy, it was some of that same, just like her writing, which I like. So it was good. Then I read Leather and Lark by Bryn Weaver. I must have read this one all day on the drive yesterday. See how my days have started to go together? Anyway, Leather and Lark is book 2 from Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver. So these books, I'm not recommending these books for a lot of people unless you go and read the things that they are about. Like this one almost got too gross for me in a couple of parts, especially because I was eating at one particular part. If you've read it, it was the pizza part close to the beginning. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that because I'm actually about to eat pizza in just a little while. So Leather and Lark follow Lachlan, who is the guy from the first book. For some reason, I can't remember his name, but it's his brother, Lachlan. So we met him in the first book, or we got to see a little bit about him in the first book. And then her, the woman from the first book, her best friend. So they kind of have to do a fake marriage, which I love, and it was really good. I liked the characters in this just as much as I liked the characters in the first one. Lachlan, had me from the very beginning. He was the cutest, and I was like, Lachlan is my favorite. But for some reason, the actual story of this one, I didn't like as much as the first one. And it could just be because the first one was so shocking and so different from everything I've ever read that I was like, wow, this is awesome. So it could just be that. But I don't know. I don't know what it was. I gave it 4 stars. I loved it. I just didn't love it. Okay, then the last book that I read on the way home, I finished it last night, was called The Fake Boyfriend Fiasco, which is a new title. It's by Talia Hibbert. It's a new title of an old book that she said she redid a little. She only edited a little, it said. And it is, I can't remember the original title, but it was something like Get It to the Greek or Come to the Greek. It had something about Greek at the end of it, which is weird. Oh, he's Greek. I was about to say they don't go to Greece at all, but he's Greek. Anyway, okay. This woman has made bad decisions with men in the past. So she's like, I'm not doing that anymore. And then this man comes up and is like, hey, I need you to pretend to be my girlfriend because I am an ex-footballer and everybody wants to get with me. And I kind of need you to block everybody from me because I'm taking a break from doing all those things. So she goes with him. They have a mutual friend. So it's not like he's a complete stranger, but they have a mutual friend who says, yeah, he's a decent guy. He's not going to hurt you or anything. So she says, okay. And so she goes, and this thing, of course, they're fake dating. It's called The Fake Boyfriend Fiasco. They fall in love, and she finds out that he's actually been in love the whole entire time. And that is not a secret. Like, we find out the moment he looks at her, he's like, oh, she's the one for me. And I just don't know what I thought about it. I did not love the characters. I did like our main character, female and male. I liked both of them. But the male character, I couldn't quite wrap my head around who he was. We kept getting these little tidbits, apparently he's bisexual, but nobody ever talks about any of that. There wasn't, I don't know. It was just like little bitty hints where he's like, oh, by the way, I've slept with everybody that's in this house at least one time. Like, just little things like that where it's like, what? And now all of a sudden you're a completely different person and you never want to do any of those things again. And it happened because you saw this woman standing in the hallway and you were like, that's it, the end. So I'm sure that happens and that's a thing that could happen. But anyway, it was just very abrupt and weird, and I don't like insta love a lot of times anyway, but this was purposefully set up as fall hard and fall first and that kind of tropes. So anyway, if you like those, even with the fake boyfriend thing, which I loved, it was still not wonderful. Then finally, I'm almost finished. Oh no, that's not true. Right before we left to go on the trip, I reread Volume 1 of Heartstopper up there. You can see that they're kind of falling over, and that's because on my trip, I took with me Lore Olympus, volumes 2 and 3, so those usually go up there on the thing, because I was going to read these. And let me show you. Volume 2 is right here. And I started reading it, and I got just that far. That's it. See that little bookmark? That's as far as I got. Because I found that when I was actually there visiting, I didn't want to take the time to read. I was actually hanging out with my people. And so I read when there were no people around or when I was driving in the car. That was the time I got to read. So last thing I read last night, I actually didn't read it until we actually got home yesterday. And it's called Warrior Girl by Carmen Tafoya. I'm not really sure how you say her last name. I should have looked that up. It is a poetry book or a book in verse about her growing up, not Carmen, about our main character girl growing up. And it's set in 2018 to 2019 specifically, and going even into the pandemic time a little bit. And she's just talking about how at her school that she's learning that maybe the history that they're teaching in the history books is not the full story and not everything that happened. This is set in San Antonio. I really liked it. Also, her dad is not a U.S. citizen, and he, at some point before the book started, was already deported. And so we're getting that story of how her dad is trying to get back to them and what they're doing, and told from the point of view of a child. So like, she doesn't know all the legal things that are happening, but she's also learning that even as a child, she can approach her teacher like her history teacher. She wrote a message at the bottom of his paper, and she was like, listen, we're learning about child labor laws, and you said that kids are not allowed to work for, longer than this time, and we're in school for 7 hours a day, and then you're giving us homework as well as our math homework and our other homework, and that all adds up to 10 hours a day of us having to do work just because we're in school. Shouldn't that count as work? And the next day he was like, no homework today. Like, because one of my students brought something to my attention. And then there was another situation where she was talking about something else. Oh, it was for Columbus Day. She brought up the fact that, like, hey, can't we talk about everything that happened with Columbus and not just the fact that, Columbus discovered a country that already had people living in it? And so he actually, the next day, the day before they were celebrating Columbus Day, he was like, this day is also called Indigenous Peoples Day, and here's why. And, like, he explained the whole thing. And he was like, thank you for doing that. Maybe somebody should write a poem about it because our girl writes poetry. Anyway, it was really good and all told in verse. It was just so cute, and I loved it a lot. So if you guys are looking for a book in verse, I highly recommend Warrior Girl. It was really good. And no, it was not romance. I read it because I needed it for one of the Facebook groups. And now that is it. I feel like I have talked and talked and talked for 20 minutes at this point. Whew. That's why the dog needs to eat, and I need to get ready because I've got to go to my appointment. So that is going to do it for this check-in. I know I didn't talk about anything that I read for my cabin for camp Seasonathon. I have completely fallen off of all of that. We were doing the cutest stuff and going on the cutest outings. So I'm still going to do it. That's what I've got to work on this afternoon, is getting those videos, little short clips filmed for my team, for my campers, which is what I'm going to do. So that is going to be in the next check-in. And since it is technically Wednesday, we're starting the new week of this, and we'll see if I'm going to get anything read. Last night I started another book, and I got barely anywhere into it, and I fell asleep because I was so tired, which was also the reason why this update is coming to you on the morning of the 19th instead of the 18th when I was supposed to film it. I was just too tired after driving another 24 hours straight. Not straight. We slept in a hotel, but sleeping in a hotel is not the same, and it's not super restful, and we have the dogs with us. I'm sorry, I'm going to stop complaining. The dogs are never going on a trip with me again where we have to ride in a car for overnight, okay? Unless we are officially moving from North Dakota, the dogs are not going. If I take them, I have told everybody in my house that they're allowed to say, no, they're not going. So I hope that's what works for us. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye. Y'all, I just realized that I had 2 microphones on, and I'm sorry that you had to listen to that. I do not have the time to go back today and fix it. So my choice is to let you listen to that awfulness or to start over, which means the video is not going to be able to come out today. This is a product of me not double checking things because I'm in a hurry and I need to get things done. So maybe I'm trying to do too many things. Story of my life. Bye.